Hello New Worlders, I hope you're having a great day today. This video will be going over 5 things that no one tells you about consumables in New World. Firstly, I'll get the most well-known tip out of the way, which is that you can store 9,999 water in a consumable slot for free. As you can see, I've got 5,046 water in here right now. If I was to drag this into my inventory, it's going to add like 500 weight, but you can store a bunch in a potion slot. The easiest way to get this is to go to Windswood and just push E for like 20-30 minutes on the water supply here. You'll get like between 14 and 18 water each time you do this, depending on the time of day. Just do this while you're watching some, Netflix or anime or whatever, right? It's easy, it's going to save you a lot of time and issues in the long run. And the main reason you do this is if you're under level 60, you can turn in a bunch of free town board missions. So you're going to get town board missions for between 100 and 200 water, 250 water, and this is just going to give you free EXP when you turn those in, since you'll just have it on you at all times. Also, when you go to make potions, you need 1 water per one, as well as for some food. So if you're not in Windswood, you will just have that on you at all times, which is very useful because a lot of towns don't have a water supply right beside them. But the most important thing is when you drink it, as seen, you get a 10-second heal over time. It doesn't heal for much, but it is free and it is spammable, and I use this all the time when I'm just, generally grinding instead of using potions. You can use this in food and it just stacks the heal on top of each other. Doesn't remove any debuffs at all, which is really, really nice. You're just running around the world and getting some free healing over time. One thing I forgot to mention is you can actually sell the water as well. People will actually buy this even in Windswood. So as you can see, if we have a look on the marketplace here and go have a look, you can see that water is selling for 18 cents for one at the moment, even in Windswood, which there is a good supply. So that means in other towns, it's probably going to be selling for more. But even at 18 cents, 600, which takes less than 2 minutes to farm, will give this person 109 gold. So they're going to be very happy if someone buys that, and I know it does sell because I have sold some in the past as well. So this is another way you could earn money if you wanted to as well. Okay, now onwards to the second thing on this list. What if I told you you could deal extra weapon damage for 10 minutes or more at a time, and it pretty much costs nothing to make? Yes, these are honing stones. You guys might not know what they are, but pretty much what they do is they give an extra percentage of weapon damage for a certain amount of time and costs practically nothing to make. So you'll see a pretty confusing tooltip here. It does say on the weakest honing stone, increases weapon damage by 200% for 0.03 minutes. This is completely wrong. It's actually supposed to be 4% weapon damage, and this one here works for 10 minutes at a time. It's still a considerable amount of damage. If you're doing 1,000 damage, you're going to be doing 1,040. So while doing an extra 4% damage, it also costs pretty much nothing to make. As you can see, it only costs 1 stone block, 1 death mote, 1 fire mote. For the lowest level one, it only has 20 weaponsmithing skill required. Very easy to make. As for the higher level ones, there is a level 71, which increases the damage by an extra 5% weapon damage and lasts for 15 minutes. Again, the tooltip is wrong. The cost is very low, only costing 1 stone brick, 1 death wisp, and 1 fire wisp. To make these, it is very easy. 1 stone brick only costs 4 stone blocks and 1 type of sandpaper. 1 death wisp is just 5 death motes, and 1 fire wisp is 5 fire motes. There are 2 other honing stones as well at level 120 weaponsmithing and 170. These ones are going to be obviously a bit harder to get to, but the cost is still very minimal. The strong honing stone increases weapon damage by 6%, and the cost is still pretty low. Only 1 lodestone brick, 1 death essence, and 1 fire essence. These are going to be more in-game. The level 170 one is the powerful honing stone, which increases your weapon damage by 7%. And again, the cost is pretty low considering what it does and how in-game this is. But yeah, definitely a great thing to add. I would highly recommend making or buying these, as you can use them to get through hard content like dungeons, elite zones, faction wars, and invasions. They definitely add up, and I've been using them personally to level weapons I don't have stats for, to make it easier to level them without wasting gold to respec to do so, right? The third item on today's agenda is coatings. Coatings are used to give more damage against a certain type of enemy. There are currently coatings for the Lost, Angry Earth, Corrupted, Ancient, and Beast type enemies. So you're probably wondering, how much impact do these actually make when it comes to fighting these enemies? So the ones you're going to be after are the Common and Strong. The Common gives an extra 9% damage against that enemy type for 5 minutes, and the Strong gives an extra 11% damage against that enemy type for 10 minutes. There are downsides to these, and the biggest downside is if you actually use one of these. So say for example, I just buy one of the cheap ones, it doesn't matter what one, so like this one here, right, costs 1 cent. Goddamn cheap when you think about it, and we just go ahead and use it. You'll see it's applied here now. If we go and have a look at it, weapon coating status on your active weapon. The thing is, if you switch weapon, it'll go away. That's the only real downside to it, so I would recommend it only being used when you're using one weapon type, unless you just want to continuously reapply it. It is quite cheap, you could do that as well. There are of course other types of potions as well. You've got the powerful and the infused. These are stronger, they're going to be more in-game. The powerful gives an extra 13% damage against that enemy type and lasts for 15 minutes. And the infused gives a maximal bonus to damage against that enemy type and lasts for 20 minutes. I'm going to assume that maximal bonus is probably 15%. I'm not 100% sure on that, but this is going to be in-game anyway. You're not going to be using them at this current stage. You're going to be sticking with the Common and Strong. These are very useful when using them in the right areas as well, and they're also very cheap. So when it comes to the common ones, at the moment on my server, these are between 1 cent and about 3 gold per one. They're incredibly cheap, and I would recommend using them. The Strong are anywhere from 1 cent to 10 gold per one. So as you can see, they're quite cost effective, especially if you're using the ones that are a lot cheaper. So those would be the ones you'd go with. Of course, you can also make these, but I wouldn't really bother. Like if we go and have a look at the Arcana side of things, the cost is quite high, as they do require some of the rare ingredients. If you have these on you and say for example you are focusing Arcana, then I would, of course you can, but they just don't sell for much either, as we saw. So that's the reason I just buy them. But for the common ones, these are the sort of materials you can use. So you need a tier 2 offensive reagent, and then you need to mix them with an air reagent. I wouldn't even be making these unless you need EXP in Arcana. And there's the strong ones as well. These ones here, as you can see, require resources that, to be honest, used outside this are probably worth more. And the other thing you need as well, if you see, these ones here have different reagents as well. But I would only use the stuff that's common to find. And to be honest, a lot of these are used in different resources. So, like I said, just buy them. Unless you're leveling up Arcana, just buy them. Or you've got the resources and you're making them for yourself, right? But easier to just buy. Okay, so the fourth item on today's list would be using attribute foods instead of normal foods for harder content. So normally people just use a standard food item, so this could be anywhere from tier 1 to 5 to get through their content. When you get to harder content, it is better to use attribute food. So as you can see, I've got roasted game bird with berry glaze here. This is something I use with dex and constitution on it. 12 dexterity and 8 constitution for 30 minutes. This is something I use for some of the in-game content. It is very useful. Obviously you've got trade foods as well if you want to go through luck stuff, but everyone should know about this already. These are very easy to make as well, but Right now, we'll go over the attribute foods and some of the basic ones that don't require any recipes that anyone can do. So, some of the, easy to make, great ones for nice stats that require just a little farming to make, we'll go over now. The easiest ones for strength, which just gives raw strength, because the other ones give like weird stat ones, right? Like they're a bit mixed. The best one for strength is pork chops and apple sauce, which gives 10 strength for 25 minutes. It just requires 1 pork, 1 cooking oil, 1 cinnamon, and 1 apple. For dexterity, you have the meat pie, which gives 10 dex for 25 minutes. It requires 1 game meat, 1 pastry crust, 1 rosemary, and 1 peppercorn. The one for intelligence is blackened fish fillet, which gives 10 intelligence for 25 minutes. This requires 1 fish fillet, 1 seasoning blend, 1 butter, and 1 lemon. And the one for focus is the venison pot roast, which gives 10 focus for 25 minutes. It costs 1 venison, 1 onion, 1 garlic, and 1 thyme. Okay, there is one for constitution. This is something I wouldn't use though. There is one main issue with this one, unfortunately. There is mixed foods you could do for constitution, and I would recommend this instead. But the one issue with the straight constitution one is tarragon is very, very hard to find. And I wouldn't recommend it just for this. It sells on the market for 100 gold for 1 tarragon, so just avoid this one. If you are going to do for constitution for other ones, you could find different recipes or just go with the base ones. So, for example, for me, because I run a dexterity constitution build, this one here would be the best one for me, a spiced melon pie. Okay, so you're probably wondering, wow, Tripwire, where do I get all these ingredients from? I am a bit confused. I don't know where to get these from. Well, the ingredients are not that hard to find as you think, as in the last patch, Amazon increased the drop rates from crates and chests by 3 times, so that means your provision crates are going to give you a ton more now. The other stuff as well is very easy to find if you know where. To find the herbs, I made a recent video on how to find them, the best ones to farm and sell as well. That will be in the description. The herbs listed in these recipes are cinnamon, rosemary, garlic, and thyme, and seasoning blend as well, which requires 3 different types of seasonings. Okay, let's quickly go over each recipe to show you how easy it is to actually make. For the pork chops and applesauce, you can get the pork from pigs. The cooking oil is made from 2 fish oil and 1 nut. The fish oil you can get from salvaging fish, the nuts in forests. So you can just go outside any town, find a forest, and you'll find a lot of nuts there. Cinnamon is found from herbs in Cutlass Keys, Eden Grove, and First Light. We're using the newworldmap.com here. I will put the link in the description as well. To configure this, all you have to do is click on herbs and just make sure you've got the cities, outpost regions, and spirit shrines selected. As you can see here, First Light would probably be the best choice, or Cutlass Keys, just because there's a lot of herbs around. Where if you go and have a look at Eden Grove, there is practically nothing wherever Eden Grove's hiding. I cannot see it to save my life. Oh, here it is. So there's not much here. Plus this is a higher level area. So definitely just go with First Light or Cutlass Keys for this one. For the apples, all you have to do is get provision crates in Brightwood or Reekwater. Obviously, Brightwood's probably going to be easier here just because it's a lower level area, but that's how you get apples for this recipe. Okay, so the dexterity food is meat pies. For the meat pies, the game meat is from rabbits, as you can see, derived from rabbits. The pastry crust is made up of a couple of different things. So you need water, salt, and flour. To get the flour, you need corn or barley. Okay, so we've flicked back over to the New World map to find the corn. All you have to do if you want to find corn is you just go to the plants, you go to cooking ingredients, and you click on the one you need. Obviously, we want corn, so that's what we've clicked on. As you can see on the map, there's a few locations where it'll have it. So you can see some in Monarch, you can see some in Evanscale Reach, but the 2 main we actually want for this and the best farming areas are in First Light and Windswood. So there is a big farm outside First Light's town, as well as a small one over there. In Windswood, there is a small farm and 2 big ones. So you've got a big farm here of corn and another one over here. So these would be the 2 places you would want to go to farm corn. As for the other ingredient, which is salt that you will need this from provision containers. The provision containers that give salt are in Brightwood and Everfull. So that will cover this whole part here. So you need to go to Brightwood or Everfull for the salt, and the flour at Windswood or First Light. And then you can make the pastry crust. As for the other parts of the meat pie, there are rosemary and peppercorn, which you can see are from herb plants. The good thing about these is they are in very similar areas. So you obviously need to get them from herb plants. So we just want to go and click the herbs. For rosemary, it is found in Great Cleave, Restless Shore, and Weaver's Fen. So straight away, if we go to Great Cleave, you can see practically nothing. Same with Weaver's Fen. Restless Shore, though, has a lot of it, thankfully. And the best thing about this is peppercorns are found in Cutlass Keys, Monarch, Bluffs, and Morningdale. These are all very rich areas of herbs, but the best place to do it would be to teleport to Restless Shore at this shrine here, get the rosemary from here, and then go up and get the peppercorns on the edge of Morningdale. This can be done in an easy transferable way without going too far, which is very nice. Okay, next on our list is the blackened fish fillet. You can get the fish fillet from salvaging fish. As you can see, it just says common fish. You just salvage the fish and you'll get the fish fillet. For the seasoning blend, you can make this in here if you scroll down as well, and it just requires 3 different types of seasonings. I would recommend getting the cheapest ones in here, so check the market. I would definitely use honey as one of these and use the market to figure out what the cheapest ones are to make this. The one butter you need for this recipe is just made from 2 milk. To find milk, all you have to do is find the local cow in each town. So in Windswood, if you come over here, you will see a little hidden cow called Dottie. You can milk Dottie and you'll get some free milk. You can do this in every town, by the way, as well as find honey. The cows are a bit more hidden than the honey. The honey's always right beside the marketplace, so makes it a bit easier. As you can see, right over here is where the honey is at. I've already got it for today, but that's where it would normally be. As for the lemons that you need for this recipe, if you go down to it, these can be found in provision crates in Great Cleave, Restless Shore, and Weaver's Fen. I would probably recommend going to Restless Shore here or Weaver's Fen just because the level of the area is a bit lower, which means it is easier to farm. And the last food we will go over is the venison pot roast. Okay, so for the venison pot roast, the venison is obviously from deers. The onions can be found in provision crates in Cutlass Keys, Eden Grove, and First Light. I'd probably go to Cutlass Keys or First Light just because it's a bit lower off an area. As for the garlic and thyme, these are found in herbs. For garlic, it is found in Everfull and Great Cleave. Go to Everfull for all this just because Great Cleave has really no herb plants. Everfull has a little bit. They are kind of scarce as well, but there is a lot more. There's some just outside the town, some over by the rocky area over here, and some by some of the farmlands over there. As for thyme, you can find this in Evenscale Reach, Reekwater, and Windswood. There is a lot of easy access plants in Windswood. There's about 80 to 100 herb bushes in this little area over here. This is the place I normally recommend. If you are in higher level area though, you could go to Evenscale Reach. As you can see, there is a heap of plants here. The problem is it is a level 60 area. You have to be high enough level to deal with the enemies there, but you can find it just as easy, and it will be uncontested because Windswood is always contested. So that's how to make the attribute foods. Definitely worth doing for the harder content, so your invasions, your dungeons, your elite zones in the higher level areas, your wars, that sort of stuff. It is very useful for. It's going to give you that extra edge over other players that are not buying this or farming this, and to buy it, it does cost a lot of money, even for the basic foods, because people don't want to farm the ingredients. They do cost like 100 gold each, as you'll see when I go into it. So for strength foods, for the pork chops with apple sauce, the cheapest one on the market right now is 25 gold. As for the intelligence food, if we go to the blackened fish fillet, they are 10, 15, then 115 gold. This one here is a little bit easier to farm just because people are doing a lot more fishing, especially in Windswood. Dexterity foods, if you look at meat pie, there's nothing even on the market. And for the focus foods, if you look at the venison pot roast, they're selling for 100 gold. So these are selling for quite a bit. Obviously, these are basic recipes. You can find better recipes around as well, like the one that I'm using, the roasted game bird with berry glaze, which gives 12 dexterity and 8 constitution for 30 minutes. I mean, this is your more end game consumables that you can use for these dungeons. But yeah, that's pretty much what you'd be wanting to do. It is a lot easier to farm, like I said, especially because the drop rate has increased by 3 times on the provision crates now. So you'll see a lot of those selling for less. If you don't want to farm them, you could also just buy them, right? But yeah, definitely make them. They're good for in-game content. If you make them, you're going to save yourself a lot of worry in the in-game, as well as save yourself a lot of money. You could also sell them and make a pretty penny because people are too lazy to make them, and people will buy them as soon as they start having trouble in those areas. Now let's move on to the last thing today, which is what consumables stack with what. So a lot of people probably don't know this, but you can have a lot of crossover with consumables. So you can have one food item. So if we have one food item here, we just use that. You can use water anytime you like, so you can spam it. It doesn't change anything, as you can see. And you can obviously use potions to heal whenever needed. This is probably the most known stuff. You can also have one weapon coating, so you can add a common beast coating here, for example, and you'll have it on there as well. The thing that people don't realize is you can also stack tincture, which I don't normally use. This is something I didn't really cover because I don't really see the point in it most of the time, unless you're doing like something that's really got a lot of corruption, affliction, or blight, or something like that. But the issue with these is you can't use a honing stone and tincture. So if we use the tincture here, you'll see it pops up here. Reduces corruption, affliction, build up by a small amount. If we use the weak honing stone, so we push that one down, you'll see it disappears. So this is pretty much how much you can have. You can have one type of food, you can have a weapon coating, you can have a honing stone or a tincture. You can also use trade skill food on top of this. That doesn't cancel anything out as well. As you can see, I have now got the mining buff on, so you can stack all that if you want as well. Not that you'll probably have too much need for that unless you're farming in a high level area. That's pretty much what cancels each other out. Like I said, you can use water whenever you want. It doesn't affect anything, which is really nice. So now I'll go over what situations you would use which consumables for. While grinding, or just general questing where it's not too hard, I just use a standard food item, so I don't use an attribute item. I normally stack this with water in my inventory and just use potions. So pretty much what you're seeing right now is my standard thing. I keep a potion that's quite strong in here, nothing too overly like strong. I use a standard food and I use water, and then the other thing I keep on me as well for this is a weak honing stone. The reason for this is when I'm leveling a weapon, which I don't have the, say, necessary stats for, so I'm using, say, like a intelligence or a strength weapon when I'm full dex and constitution, because that's my build, then it's going to do weaker damage, right? So increasing that weapon's weapon damage is just going to make it a little easier to level up without having to respec. When it comes to farming resources in a non-threat area, I'll just use trade foods. I won't use anything else because there's just no threat, there's no point to. If I'm in an area, however, where there is a lot of threat, I'll be using exactly what I've got on right now. So I'll use the luck food, I'll use the honing stone, I'll use a coating depending on which enemies I'm versing, and I'll use a health item. So normally, depending how hard it is, I'll either switch it from attribute food or I'll just use a standard food item depending if what I need to get through it. Out of all these foods, the most expensive one is going to be your trade foods and your attribute foods, so definitely keep that in mind. Depending on how hard the content is, that's when you'll be wanting to use them. So you're probably wondering, when would I use an attribute food over a normal food then, right? The times I use an attribute food would be in wars, invasions, dungeons, and elite areas which actually require it. That's when I would be using an attribute food, just to give you that extra bonus, especially in wars and invasions. You might be able to get it through a dungeon without bothering with it, depending on the level of the dungeon. So that was the 5 things no one tells you about consumables in New World. If you did find this video useful, please like and subscribe on YouTube, as I'll be posting more New World content. Please also send this to your friends and guild members, as they might be able to learn something useful as well. I also stream over at twitch.tv/tripwirenz, so you can catch me over there as well. And always, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, wherever you guys are. Peace out.